Hello everybody and welcome back to Insider's Guide. Today we're revisiting one of the older Insider's Guides I've made, episode 14 about Beaver Creek. It's been well over a year now and things have changed. Along with that, there are some inaccuracies I would like to correct, along with going more in detail about certain areas. Obviously, if you haven't watched parts A and B, you need to watch those before this, as this video is solely filling in the gaps in those ones. So with that, let's begin part C of an Insider's Guide to Ski Resorts, Beaver Creek. To begin, I would like to correct my statement that most of the blacks in the Centennial Pod are mogul runs. Beaver Creek has very good grooming coverage in the Centennial Pod, and while all of these lower blues are groomed nightly along with the middle portion of Centennial, all of the blacks get rotating grooming, meaning that aside from Moonshine and Bootleg, all of these blacks under Centennial don't really develop moguls. Something else to note is that this middle portion of Centennial would pass as a blue anywhere else, so if you're an intermediate, you can come down Upper Latigo, pop across on Dally, and then hit Centennial to Bear Trap or 1876. But in all honesty, if you are good on blues, these blacks are a great first blacks to try. They get a touch icy from time to time, but they're not bad overall. Just check the grooming report at the top status board or online, and then hit the groomer. Over in the Rose Bowl pod, Ripsaw typically gets moguls, but every now and then gets groomed as well. Up at the top of Beaver Creek Mountain is the Red Buffalo Express. Its green groomers are extremely popular, and because of the high ski school population, the line often moves much slower than at other lifts. For beginners, I find that the McCoy Park Express tends to have somewhat shorter lines, at least for now. In the first part, I completely glossed over the Stone Creek Chutes. These are the only truly extreme areas at the resort. From the Red Buffalo Run, you can access the Upper Stone Creek Chutes. This area has a single-track traverse running along the ridgeline, with lots of named and unnamed lines branching off to the skier's right. On the upper section, you'll first come across a series of extremely steep, relatively narrow mogul runs. These are some of the easiest lines in the Stone Creek area. If you keep along the ridge beyond that, you'll come across some more technical lines with narrow rock and tree-lined chutes and even the occasional cliff drop. There are also lots of tight tree sections between the signed lines. The entirety of the upper chutes is through a forest of pines. At the bottom of the upper chutes, you'll have what is basically a standard, albeit long, mogul run that you have to hit before you get to the exit traverse, which is groomed. The lower chutes, for the most part, don't have too much before getting to the exit road. In the lower section, you start off with another steep mogul run cut between pines. After that, there is an area through the pines with some large cliffs. If you keep along the ridge past all of that, however, you will first transition into a beautiful grove of aspens, and then you'll reach my personal favorite line, Hourglass. Hourglass is mainly just a steep but well-spaced glade, but it has one narrow section about 2/3 of the way down, which is where it gets its name from. If you continue on the ridge past that, you'll find some more cliff areas through the aspens. This is the best area to hit cliffs, as it is the clearest given that aspens don't have as many low branches as the pines. After the aspens, it transitions back to super dense pines, in which many areas are too dense to physically be able to fit. The exit traverse moves along well and drops you right at the bottom of Rose Bowl. You can access the lower chutes directly from the top of Rose Bowl by taking cinch around here to the switchback and entering through a gate on the skier's right. I prefer the lower chutes because they are only a one-lift lap, but of course that comes with the caveat that the lower chutes tend to get skied off more quickly. Alright, let's shift gears a little bit and revisit Grouse Mountain. In part A, I incorrectly stated that the Grouse Mountain Express gets busy in pulses. It just doesn't get busy. Period. It does offer access to a nice handful of black mogul runs, but some are groomed. Raven Ridge and Ptarmigan seem to be groomed about twice a week throughout the 2023-24 ski season. Bald Eagle is the most intense of these leg burners, being the steepest, although not quite the longest. It has a decent traverse to exit, so keep up a touch of speed. Falcon Park isn't really signed, but once you get past your third traverse crossing, look for a cut in the trees on your right. It's a nice area that's not as touched as other runs because it's relatively hidden. The Royal Elk Glade is relatively steep, although compared to others in Colorado, you can find much crazier trees elsewhere, including even just in the Stone Creek Chutes at Beaver Creek itself. It is, however, relatively remote, so it's essential that you ski Royal Elk with a partner. Over in the Larkspur Pod, Bluebell and Paintbrush are typically left ungroomed, but they are relatively high-traffic runs, so I wouldn't recommend them as good mogul learning runs. For that purpose, my recommendation would be Moonshine or Bootleg in the Centennial Pod. The BC Mountain Expressway, where it crosses Larkspur, is extremely difficult to follow. I'd say that about 95% of expressway traffic just takes lower Larkspur, which results in it being dangerously busy and icy on peak days. If you want to stay on the expressway, just try your best to stay as high as possible and trust that the skiers uphill of you will yield as you cross the run. I've found that, at least for me, space hasn't felt like as big of an issue at Beaver Creek as at other resorts. Now let's discuss McCoy Park. First, let me list all of the flat roads: Kinship, Exploration, Upper Sanctuary, Unwind, and, even though they're not truly in McCoy Park, Primrose and the BC Mountain Expressway. There you go. If you want to avoid taking a road to get in, well, you're out of luck. I would recommend Sanctuary from Larkspur, however, as it's a much shorter catwalk and is less flat. To exit the pod while avoiding a catwalk, you can take Reunion, but in all honesty, Unwind is far from the worst catwalk just mentioned, and Reunion is painfully slow. These blues on the looker's left are rarely groomed. Journey, Tranquility, and Bliss are the three greens that seemed consistently groomed, but don't count on that. McCoy Park is extremely unique in that it has quite a few green runs that are ungroomed. It is a perfect place to get introduced to off-piste and bowl skiing, and is awesome for true beginners because there truly isn't another resort at which beginners can get that type of experience. In the Bachelor Gulch pod, these Coyote Glade and Sourdough Slide Kids adventure zones are really good. However, as tempting as it may be to duck into the more dense, less tracked woods on either side, I would highly recommend staying on the main section of those trails, as I nearly ate it on a hidden creek after going into some more dense glades off Sourdough Slide on a powder day. Getting to Arrowhead from the Bachelor Gulch area, be aware that Upper Stirrup and Primrose are equally as flat, but the Upper Stirrup flat section is shorter. If you're trying to get there as efficiently as possible from the village, then Strawberry Park to Primrose works. But otherwise, I would advise stopping by Bachelor Gulch and taking that extra step to cut your traverse time by about half. Now, coming back from Arrowhead presents a few options. You can take the entrance to Lower Stirrup and then cut across here, all the way to Goonders. You're going to want to take this method if you want to get back to the village as efficiently as possible. Springtooth is a nice blue groomer, while Stirrup just cuts back and forth across it. Because of the constant intersections there, just as with Gold Dust and Cinch, I recommend avoiding that area unless you have to be there. I much prefer Roughlock. Roughlock is a fun run, as it feels like a roller coaster the way it dips under and jumps over the road several times while winding through one of the most expensive neighborhoods in Colorado. As my final point in this video, I would just like to recount that I wasted 20 minutes and all of my mental strength to ski the entirety of Piece of Cake this season so that y'all don't have to. And let me tell you, if you thought Cinch was bad, Piece of Cake is 10 times worse. Yes, Piece of Cake is significantly less busy, but that's because it's way flatter and is often entirely impossible to follow when it crosses the blues. People on the runs it crosses are not nearly as aware as those on Gold Dust where Cinch crosses, which puts a lot more responsibility on the party taking Piece of Cake. All this is to say, in short, just don't. Not sure why anyone would, but don't. So, on that incredibly positive note, we'll leave it off there. I hope that this helps, and as always, please leave any questions down below. Go check out another episode of Insider's Guide, perhaps another recently amended episode, such as Arapahoe Basin. Thank you all so much for watching. All my love, I'm out.